The proposed Giddens Memorial Park is being built to honor not only the Giddens family for their good works, but to honor the formerly enslaved people buried in the cemetery. George and Addie Giddens allowed people who were unable to afford to be buried in the city cemetery a place of eternal rest on their property. Most graves remain unmarked, and despite the inability to recognize each person buried by name, the memorial will honor all lives, known and unknown. One African-American woman, Gloriana Hardy, and her daughter Viola Johnson are buried in the cemetery, possibly along with her husband Monroe and likely other family members. A high-achieving woman by the name Charlene Giddens Hall was also buried in the cemetery. She graduated with the first class of the Lee County Training School, the first school to offer a high school education to African Americans in this area. It is important to recognize the formerly enslaved people buried in the cemetery, but also the history behind the institution of slavery. The Giddens Memorial Park is intended to represent faith, hard work, and perseverance. To do this, the memorial park will be filled with symbolism to reflect these values. Around the park, strelitza, an orange flower also known as bird of paradise flower, which is known to represent freedom and immortality, will be planted, as well as irises, blue flowers known to represent hope, faith, and wisdom. Apple and pear trees will be planted throughout the park. The apple tree has been associated with Aphrodite and known as the tree of love. The pear tree represents inner peace. The cemetery is a place of eternal rest and peace for formerly enslaved people. Everything in the memorial will be symbolic of overcoming discrimination and the Giddens' success. Lastly, a statue that represents the work of George and Addie Giddens placed in the center of the memorial to represent them together, watching over their family, friends, and loved ones. This statue will honor their work and celebrate their lives of the known and unknown buried in the cemetery. The difficulties African Americans faced during the slave period didn't end with emancipation. Alabama's ratification of the 13th Amendment in December of 1865 may have outlawed slavery in the states, but it was far from ending discrimination or solving the difficulties facing newly freed enslaved African Americans. The first of many inequalities these freed slaves encountered was not truly knowing their age. Birthdays weren't recorded, which meant ages were estimated in the state of federal censuses. This often led to varying ages from one census to the next, meaning that the true age of many who are buried there, including George and Addie Giddens and others such as Gloriana Hardy, are unknown. One of the other problems facing African Americans was the difficulty of purchasing and owning their own land. Fewer educational opportunities and prior income meant the recently freed slaves often had to work as sharecroppers. This made it hard for them to save enough money to purchase land of their own, since sharecropping was meant to keep African Americans impoverished and shackled to the land they were once enslaved on. Therefore, it was rare at the time for African Americans to own land or run their own farms. George Giddens was an exception to this with the acres he purchased in 1901. George Giddens was a black man born around the year of 1865, and Addison Giddens was born around the year of 1880. They both were farmers and grew up poor. They got married and had 5 kids together, 2 sons and 3 daughters. The Giddens purchased 54.5 acres of farmland in current-day Opelika, and we want to find a way to commemorate the Giddens with their land. The memorial is meant to bring focus to the fact that during this time, not many formerly enslaved people or even freed black people could afford to bury their dead relatives. Therefore, the Giddens let them bury their dead on their land for free. The Giddens were good people who wanted to help the community, and their success in being free and owning land demonstrated equal opportunities. The Giddens started as poor farmers who ended up having a big impact on the community through their generosity. In order to maintain the memorial, we have decided on a route focused on fundraising and volunteer work. The memorial may be able to gain money through public taxes or donations. A seasonal way to earn money would be through the fruit trees, such as pear and apple trees. Guests who visit the memorial will be able to pick the fruit, and the money will go towards maintenance. A special team of volunteers, such as churches, school clubs, and cemetery associations, will be organized to provide maintenance such as cleaning and lawn work. The parking lot will directly connect to the pathway, which will be decorated front and center by a beautiful statue representing peace, and plaques containing history of all the known people buried at the memorial will decorate the sides of the path. The pathway will be paved and decorated with many flowers with specific meanings, as well as fruit trees. There will be a bathroom that will be well kept, as well as a large, beautiful wooden gazebo. An outdoor classroom will be built to serve as a location for school groups to come and be further educated on our city's history. The classroom will be in the form of a smaller amphitheater. It will be a beautiful spot based on the history of the Giddens family and the formerly enslaved people buried on the land. The success of George and Addie Giddens goes further than their backyard. Their hard work symbolized perseverance and determination and led to a big step towards the hope of equality and inspiration for what could be achieved. The memorial represents their values and will serve to educate others in hopes to broaden the understanding of our local history.